Hello, and welcome to another Precision Flyer Repairs video. Today's video features an early post-war 2-rail S-gauge built by the A.C. Gilbert Company of New Haven, Connecticut. 462 K5 Pennsylvania Railroad, steam engine, cab number 312. And this one is a smoke intender model. Early on, these engines had a motor to drive the drive wheels in the boiler shell or on the chassis that goes in the boiler shell of the locomotive, and they also had a separate motor that drove air through a smoke unit in the tender. And the smoke generated in the tender was carried forward to the smokestack through a rubber hose or tube, soft rubber tube that goes up along the ceiling of the locomotive shell, and it connects to a fitting under the smokestack, a 90-degree fitting made of brass. And as the smoke was generated in the tender, that air pressure forced it through the rubber connecting hose and out the stack. Now, they can smoke like crazy, and you're lucky if you get much plume out of it because of the head loss through that tubing, but they're quite entertaining and a lot of fun. Now, what's neat about this too is they give you a switch on the bottom of the tender, so you can turn the smoke unit off or on. Don't have to have it running all the time, which personally I kind of think is great. The chooch is generated by the smoke unit in the tender, however. So if you turn the smoke off, you are going to have a silent running engine because there won't be any choo-choo, because the smoke unit actually is what makes the choo-choo sound. Now, these are quite quiet in terms of choo-choo compared to the later ones that had only one motor, and that motor was in the locomotive powering the drive wheels and driving the piston cylinder designed smoke unit up in the boiler shell. Their chooches are just louder. But this one came to me from a customer in pretty bad shape. Bad enough that he sent another one along with it as a parts donor and said, just take what's presented by both of these and turn it into one. Optimize across the two if you would, please. So that's what I did. And this is the finished product. It's a 312 smoke intender, early model. It's even got the brass buttons in the middle of the engine's chassis underneath, where they had at one time had designs on accessory tracks and signaling contacts that those buttons would help activate, but that never really came to fruition. So you only see them early production steam engines. And this one was a complete overhaul. The motor, the drive wheels off, disassembled and reassembled, quartered, gauged, trued, and all that good stuff. The bodies, both shells, have been washed and hand dried, and then I gave them a conditioner that I do. It's nothing sprayed on. It's just something that helps take a little bit of that extra dirt off and put a little bit of emollient back in the paint. It gives it not a glossy finish or anything other than its original matte patine, but just makes the black a little richer. So this one is, oh, and then the smoke unit, well, that came out and off and all apart. It's got a fresh wick, fresh coil. And I converted this one from the original bellows design. It actually had a soft, collapsible bellows like you would fan an old fire with in a fireplace. And I converted that to a piston and cylinder in the back. It's just more reliable, dependable. And, you know, you want to get all that you can out of there because it has the job of pushing that smoke from the tender all the way through the engine and out the stack. And I think the piston and cylinder design, which they came out with later than the original bellows, does a better job. And service the tender trucks and all that good stuff. Added a few jewels and just, you know, make it look good and run like it should. That's what I think it's turned out to be. So I wanted to share this with you. It is particularly fast. I would liken it to a blueprinted hot rod where, they take a blueprint of specifically the tolerances of every part in an engine and build it exactly to the optimal tolerance in the case of every part. They have to understand these are toys and everything about them is built to a tolerance, plus and minus so much. And that's why some of them, I think, end up running better than others, because in some cases you get a lot of negative tolerance, and in others you get a lot of positive tolerance. And sometimes you end up with one where I think the best of the plus and minuses somehow showed up. This one without the smoke on and without a train behind it is cruising with only 10 volts of power on the tracks. It's smooth and steady, and I think you'll see smoky and fast. We're going to run around the bottom loop with this 4 lighted passenger train, and I think you'll see a reading on the voltmeter of about 12 volts on the railhead. It's also surprisingly efficient when there's no engine on the tracks as opposed to it on the tracks and running. The voltage drop doesn't really materialize into much, which I'm surprised by, because generally American Flyer trains show you a marked difference in that, but this one's very efficient in the energy that it uses. Quite a 21st century, if you will, steam engine. Despite its 1946 or 47 origins, it's not date stamped. You'll notice that on the tender, let me get a little closer, there's no markings for American Flyer, only Pennsylvania. And this tender does have some telltales of having been an engine that was played with. He did say that it gets used, but it's got that signature Pennsylvania lettering only, which they did initially only put the railroad name on the tender as to be part of its true scale railroading product. But later they realized, wait a minute, we could advertise, so let's change that up and put a little emblem up in the right hand corner, and then American Flyer or American Flyer lines on the tender so as to advertise and let parents who see other kids playing with trains know what train to buy their kids. That sort of thing. All right. Well, without any further ado, I'm just going to set this thing up and running. I think it's going to start off in neutral, so you'll see the smoke start to get generated and come out the stack. And then we'll let it run around the lower loop, take it up the inclines, and go from there. Oh, before we do, of course, I want to say thank you for watching my videos. I really do appreciate it. If you would, please subscribe and click the bell and the word all so you get notified anytime that I post new material. If you like it, comments are welcome, and share it with your friends or family or fellow train enthusiasts. Even if they're not into S-Gauge, they might enjoy seeing these classics in action. If you'd like to know more about my Precision Flyer Repair train services, there's my website, precisionflyerrepairs.com. What do you know? On that website, there's a contact page. You can fill out a simple form, drop me a line, and I'll get back to you. Or write me an email at precisionflyerrepairs@gmail.com. Thank you. Now let's see this classic American Flyer smoking tender K5 Pennsylvania Railroad steam engine go. So you hear the choo-choo. Let's see if we can get around and catch this smoke unit in action. Yeah, there we go. So that's coming through the tube. And the choo-choo sound and the smoke are generated back here. See that little cap? You unscrew that cap and put smoke fluid down that stack to get the smoke unit replenished. There she is. Yep, they can smoke, and this one does. So let's see, get her in action from here. There she goes. Let's take a look at that voltmeter after she gets through the interchange and get a good reading on the lower loop. Here's the lower loop. Yeah, it's right around 12. She's keeping up a pretty good pace. The 12 volts at the railhead, powering two motors, the one in the engine, the one in the smoke unit tender, and then illuminating 4 passenger cars, and those are incandescent bulbs. There's nothing LED about those. Just like we used to run them, still run them today. You hear that choo-choo? See that extra smoke? Hey, this is fun. American Flyer. Yes, sir. American Flyer fun on a Friday afternoon. I'm so glad you're able to join me, as this one is finished and soon to be returned to its owner. I'll just back it up. Now, as you can see, I forgot to mention, but it's obvious, when it's in neutral, it sits there and smokes. It's the only American Flyer steam engine I know of that does that. It's the smoke and tender type. So let's conclude this video with it sitting there doing what it does uniquely among Flyer steam engines, and that's sit awaiting for its orders, smoking away, set to go. So thanks again for joining me, and until next time, be well and have fun running your trains.